Welcome back. News of the day. A few items to tackle and a couple of bigger ones that we want to dive into. The first one is going to be Texas Tech has 3 players that are considered questionable in the latest update. Linebacker Jacob Rodriguez having a really good year for them, currently listed as questionable. And then 2 offensive linemen, Hunter Zambrano, who they brought in via the transfer portal, and Howard Sampson, their left tackle, who has had some issues with injuries so far this year. Now, do I think they're actually questionable? Probably not. College football reporting has been kind of all over the place. Ole Miss has been a perfect example of why you can't really trust that. So I don't necessarily know what this actually means. We'll see what happens when they truly come out and play. But to me, I'm not really questioning if they're going to play right now. It's still early enough in the week where they're still going to have time to get back on the field. So you don't really know what questionable means, but it is something to keep an eye on. One that is going to impact it is wide receiver Jaden Greathouse for Notre Dame is out against North Carolina State. Now, he has not had the best year, and he has not been as much of an impact player as we thought. And now we're kind of seeing maybe a reason why. So far, only 4 catches for Greathouse, 73 yards. When you look at what he did in the college football playoff for Notre Dame, you saw what he could potentially do, but you haven't been able to see that this year. Now, this is an offense that has been apparently just fine without him. So they haven't exactly missed him, but they do need a talent like him in this offense. Just because he's out and they've done well without him doesn't mean that he can't make an impact. So that is a notable one for this weekend. We don't need to dive too much into this, but Bill Belichick gets the dreaded vote of confidence. It feels like it's only a matter of time before he is out the door. But right now, it's kind of a disaster right there. We saw the debacle yesterday, and really all season, North Carolina has not played very well, and Belichick has been a big reason why they have struggled. He's not figured things out, and it appears that things may be coming to an end sooner. They've talked about buyout options. There's been reports that he's even potentially agreed to his $1 million buyout if he can land somewhere else. So there's already exit discussions happening. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there or when that's going to happen. But as of right now, it looks like that's where they are going. The big news of the day, though, is Mario Cristobal said that the Heisman Trophy should be a postseason award, that they should give out this award after all the postseason games are played. Now, I am okay with where the Heisman Trophy is currently given out. I don't really have any complaints about how that is being done, but let's dive into it. Let's talk about it. The quote from him was, "The whole award before the postseason games are played is absolutely bizarre to me." That is a quote that obviously is probably going to get clipped and probably is going to get posted on social media everywhere, but let's dive into the playoff era. Let's look at the Heisman Trophy top 5 for the entire playoff era, and let's dive into would that have made a difference. And when you look at this list, there's not a ton of years where it would have changed things. So in a way, you can make an argument either way. You think, okay, well, it doesn't change anything, so why make a change now? Or, well, it doesn't matter, so we should make a change. I can see people arguing both sides. 2024, to me, it wouldn't have made a difference because top 5, the only player that really would have made an impact towards the positive is Cam Skattebo, and he was 5th. So he wasn't going to win the Heisman Trophy based off his playoff. Ashton Jeanty had an opportunity to do that, and I think that if he would have played better, which is not entirely his fault, then maybe he would have surpassed Travis Hunter because Colorado was not in the college football playoff. So to me, that doesn't really change anything. People were still probably going to vote one way or another, and some might not have changed how they voted even after the postseason. But I don't think that changes anything. 2023, I don't think that that's going to change anything unless you really put a ton of stock into what Michael Penix Jr. did in the playoff. Now, what he did against Michigan wasn't maybe enough to put him over the top over Jane Daniels, but Jane Daniels had such a good year that I don't know if that necessarily makes a difference, but that's one where maybe it does make a case. I don't think it does. 2022, I think the big argument is, are you going to tell me that you were going to put Max Duggan or Stetson Bennett over Caleb Williams after what you saw in the playoff? No, you weren't going to do that. That's not going to make a difference. 2021, same thing. Bryce Young is going to win the Heisman Trophy regardless of what happens in the postseason and with what happened. I don't think that you're going to change that. Same thing with 2020. Devontae Smith was absolutely dominant. Don't really have to debate that, especially because of how Alabama played. 2019, Joe Burrow was the best. Doesn't matter. Joe Burrow was the best player in college football that year, and he beat plenty of the talent that are listed below him. So that LSU team was absolutely phenomenal. That's not going to change. 2018, kind of the same thing. Kyler Murray probably winning the Heisman Trophy. I don't know if the playoff really makes a difference there. You look at Tua Tagovailoa and what he could have potentially done, and again, I just don't think it makes a difference. 2017, kind of the same thing. Baker Mayfield really did some good things for that team. I don't think anybody below him is going to make a run. And again, some of the players that maybe were in the top 10 would have improved, but I don't think as of right now this is making a huge difference. The one year where you could have made an argument that this made a difference was in 2016. Lamar Jackson wins the Heisman Trophy, and honestly, if you look at his numbers, it's easy to see why he did. However, he didn't play in the playoff. So are you going to take a bowl game performance over a playoff game or two playoff games, especially when you look at the 2016 Clemson Tigers? Deshaun Watson threw for over 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and could have made a case that he deserved to win the Heisman Trophy after the playoff. That's the one year where it's debatable. The thing is, are you really going to give Deshaun Watson the Heisman Trophy over Lamar Jackson with what we saw from Lamar? Lamar had over 3,600 yards, 27 touchdowns through the air. He also ran for 1,600 yards and 18 more scores on the ground. So are you going to give the Heisman Trophy to a guy that played in the playoff because his team was better? Or are you going to purely look at these teams were relatively comparable and whatnot, and then we're going to give the award to a guy who played two more games, or played more games than Lamar Jackson did. Played two more games, than Lamar Jackson did. So Deshaun Watson, over 4,500 yards with 41 touchdowns passing. He also ran for 629 yards and 9 scores. So he had 50 total touchdowns compared to Lamar's 45, but he needed 2 more games. That's really where the debate would come in. So to me, 1 year doesn't really make a difference. Derrick Henry's winning in 2015. Marcus Mariota's winning in 2014. I don't think that changes a ton. I don't think that affects that, but it's definitely an interesting discussion for sure. Going back to the news, Georgia Tech's Achilles Stone is going to be out versus Virginia Tech. That's a big name for the Yellow Jackets that's going to be out, but I don't know if it's going to necessarily change the momentum or the result of this game. Virginia Tech fired their head coach earlier this year, and Georgia Tech is in a much better place. Although they have been struggling a little bit more lately, if they can get back on track, this is a team that should allow them to do that. And then finally, Western Kentucky. This is a program that has not a ton of following, but a reason we talk about them is their uniforms. More specifically, the mascot and the decals on their helmets. And this week they have another good one. When you look at the images, which I have here, the Cam Ward celebration has been kind of, the more recent viral celebration, trending celebration, if you will. They have Big Red doing that on their helmets, and I just love the creativity. In a world where you're trying to stand out, Western Kentucky is not going to beat out recruits for big-time players. They're not going to win the traditional way in terms of getting attention. This is a great way they do that. They have a unique mascot, and this isn't the first time that we've seen them do something creative with their decals, with their logo. We saw the different positions last year on each helmet, super creative. Now they have this. I just love how they're doing these things and how they're getting attention. That is it for today's news of the day. If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It goes a long way in helping the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.